Hey guys, Chris here from Lucky Gunner, reposting another video removed by YouTube. This one is from just a year ago and it's all about 44 Magnum. I've got another 44 related video coming up soon and I thought it would be a good time to get this one back out into the world. As always, regardless of what YouTube does, you can find our entire video archive on our blog, Lucky Gunner Lounge. So from December 2024, here is everything you wanted to know about 44 Magnum. 44 Magnum is not just a cartridge. It's an icon of unrelenting power. It's also the subject of more myths, misconceptions, and questions than just about any other cartridge. And that's where we come in. We have scoured the internet for the most frequently asked questions about 44 Magnum. Today, I'm gonna tackle them for you. Now, while I am an avid fan of revolvers, I don't claim to be the foremost authority on 44 Magnum. There are folks out there with decades of experience shooting, hand loading, and hunting with this cartridge. I am just here to separate fact from fiction and help you get started if you are 44 curious. We're gonna dive into those questions in just a minute, but first, let's take a quick look at how this legendary cartridge came to be. Elmer Keith, one of the most influential gun writers of the 20th century, was well known for his experimental hand loads. His favorite cartridge, 44 Special, tolerated his high-pressure recipes, often pushing velocities 50% higher than factory loads. Keith's old Smith & Wesson triple-lock revolvers could, for the most part, hold up to these pressures, but it was not ideal. So over a period of 30 years, Keith repeatedly badgered Remington and Smith & Wesson to develop Magnum versions of their 44 ammo and revolvers. In 1955, they finally relented. Smith & Wesson shipped prototypes of an in-frame revolver, later named the Model 29, and paired it with Remington's new 44 Magnum cartridge. The round was essentially a 44 Special loaded to maximum pressures. Remington added a 1/10 of an inch to the case length so it could not be loaded in 44 Special revolvers. Keith wanted a 250 grain semi-wad cutter at 1200 feet per second. Remington went above and beyond with the initial factory loads, which were 240 grain bullets at 1540 feet per second. Smith & Wesson also spared no effort when they designed the new gun. The first 44 Magnums that shipped in early 1956 were considered the finest revolvers money could buy. A new heat treating process strengthened the metal to handle Magnum level pressures. They lengthened the cylinder and beefed up the barrel to help tame the recoil. The guns were offered with 4, 6.5, or 8 3/8 inch barrels with a beautiful deep blued finish. The original list price was $135, more than double what most other revolvers cost at the time. 44 Magnum was originally developed with hunters in mind, and that's where most of the early sales went. Ruger also supported the cartridge with the single-action Black Hawk revolver at a more accessible price, and in the 60s, Marlin and Ruger offered 44 Magnum rifles. Even so, 44 Magnum quickly developed a reputation as a hard recoiling, expensive hunting cartridge that was beyond the needs of the average outdoorsman. By the early 1970s, demand for the Model 29 had dwindled enough that Smith & Wesson only made occasional production runs. So when film director Don Siegel contacted Smith about using a 4-inch Model 29 for an upcoming movie, all they had on hand was long-barreled models. That is how Clint Eastwood ended up with his iconic 6.5-inch hand cannon in the 1971 debut of Dirty Harry. It's hard to overstate the impact the Dirty Harry movies had on the popularity and just overall public awareness of 44 Magnum and the Model 29. Smith & Wesson was caught off guard. They didn't have any Model 29s ready to ship when the movie came out, and it took them several years to catch up with the new demand. In the 1970s, it wasn't uncommon to find Model 29s selling for 2 or 3 times the MSRP. According to industry legend, when they could be found, they were often lightly used with a box of ammo missing only 6 rounds. Apparently, movie fans were not quite prepared for the 44 Magnum recoil. In the 1970s and 80s, handguns gained wider acceptance among hunters, with 44 Magnum as the cartridge of choice for many. It was also embraced in the briefly popular sport of handgun metallic silhouette shooting. Dan Wesson and Ruger finally gave Smith & Wesson some competition when they released their own double-action .44 Magnums in the 80s, and then Colt eventually joined in with the .44 Anaconda in 1990. While revolver sales in general took a nosedive in the 90s and 2000s in the great semi-auto migration, .44 Magnum remained the first choice when you needed a handgun with sheer power above all other considerations. And now, on to the questions. How powerful is .44 Magnum? The short answer is that it's a lot more powerful than common handgun rounds like 9mm or 45 ACP, but with a pistol-length barrel, it does not quite reach the level of intermediate rifle cartridges like 5.56 NATO. But the word power can mean a lot of different things. In terms of kinetic energy, a .44 Magnum revolver delivers roughly 800 to 1200 foot-pounds at the muzzle, depending on the load and barrel length. Most self-defense calibers range from 200 to 700 foot-pounds. Intermediate rifle cartridges start at about 1200 and climb to around 2000. From a rifle, .44 Magnum gains quite a bit of velocity, raising its kinetic energy into rifle territory. But muzzle energy alone is kind of a misleading measure of effectiveness. Energy does not drop a deer or stop a violent threat. What really matters is how the energy is used, which depends on things like bullet shape and the materials the bullet's made of. With certain types of non-expanding bullets like hard cast lead, .44 Magnum penetrates extremely well. That's why it's often recommended for bear defense. These bullets typically don't deform or deflect, they plow straight through the target. On the other hand, an expanding .44 Magnum can sometimes deliver rifle-like performance. In case you missed my video on handgun versus rifle ballistics, most pistol calibers cause tissue damage by simply making holes, while high-velocity rifle bullets and large projectiles like shotgun slugs often create severe tearing around the bullet's path. .44 Magnum isn't quite fast enough or large enough to be in that rifle ballistics category, but it's close. A well-designed, expanding .44 Magnum bullet can sometimes cause rifle-like damage on impact and still penetrate 20 or more inches in ballistic gel. There are more powerful handgun cartridges like 454 Casull and 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, but those are really more like rifle cartridges that happen to fit in a revolver. However you want to measure power, .44 Magnum sits in that gap between what we traditionally think of as pistol and rifle ballistics. How much recoil does .44 Magnum have? .44 Magnum is the benchmark for heavy handgun recoil, but is it really that bad? Yes, it is. But also, it depends. Felt recoil is subjective, and it varies depending on the load and the gun and your personal tolerance for harsh recoil and even things like your hand shape and size. Extra heavy revolvers like the Smith & Wesson Performance Center Hunter or the 8-inch Taurus Raging Hunter with ported barrels and ergonomic rubber grips can tame even the hottest .44 Magnum loads. And then there is the lightweight Smith & Wesson 329 PD with hardwood grips, which can be punishing with any Magnum ammo. In the company armory, we've got this 6.5-inch Model 29 and a 4-inch Model 629 with full power loads, 240 grains at 1100 to 1400 feet per second. I find the recoil exceptionally harsh, especially with the 4-inch gun. Grips make a big difference. The rubber Hogue grips are a major improvement for me over the original wood grips on the Model 29. The forward swooping flare here is really bad for recoil control, but even with decent grips, I'm only good for about 50 rounds spaced out over a couple of hours before my hand starts begging for mercy. Done. But again, everyone experiences recoil differently. Some people can tolerate more, some can't handle more than one shot. I've got really bony hands, don't have a whole lot of natural cushioning in my palms, so that doesn't help. Technique also plays a big role. If you don't have a really tight grip on that gun, you're going to feel it accelerate into your hand, and it will not be pleasant. Felt recoil aside, substantial muzzle rise is pretty inevitable with most of these guns. It's possible to get rapid follow-up shots like Jerry, but only with serious practice, and most of us are just not into that kind of punishment.
Get some!
Fortunately, 44 Special offers a far more pleasant shooting experience. In these heavy revolvers, it's comparable to shooting 9mm or 38 Special out of a full-size gun. Even hot 44 Special loads are pretty easy to manage. Another option is low recoil Magnums that fall somewhere between 44 Specials and the full power Magnums. In rifles, 44 Magnum is really mild, even full power loads. It's not quite as soft shooting as an AR-15. I'd say it's more like an AK in 7.62x3.9. With 44 Special in a lever action, recoil is virtually non-existent. Is 44 Magnum good for self-defense? All right, let's break this one down into 3 categories: concealed carry, home defense, and wilderness protection. Concealed carry, that's a flat no. That's just silly. The guns are massive, and you don't want to haul around something like that all the time. There are much better options. For home defense, a 44 Magnum lever action might actually be one of the better options available if you can't use a semi-auto. A 44 Magnum revolver for home defense, not ideal. If you're going to do it, I would advise using 44 Special ammo. If you miss with a 44 Magnum in the close confines of a home, the recoil and possibly the muzzle flash and the noise are going to make it really challenging to get follow-up shots. In the wilderness, bears are the big concern, even though fatal attacks are rare, about 3 per year in all of North America. In my video about handguns for bear defense from a couple of months ago, we looked at 162 documented cases, and in all but 4 of them, a handgun successfully stopped or deterred the bear. 44 Magnum is a popular choice for bear defense, and it has a very solid track record, but it also looks like pretty much any centerfire caliber can be effective as long as you get hits. The recoil issue still applies here. If you shoot at a charging bear and miss, quick follow-up shots are not easy. 10mm is rapidly gaining popularity for bear defense because it's a good penetrator and far more controllable, and I find it hard to argue with that logic. Can 44 Magnum be used for hunting? Depending on what you're hunting and where you live, probably. In terms of legality, some states have odd and convoluted laws about calibers and what game you can take with them, so always check the regulations in your area. I personally only hunt occasionally. I have not hunted with 44 Magnum. It was designed specifically to take medium-sized game, and it has proven to be effective for that task. But remember, it's still a handgun cartridge. Range is limited, and shot placement has to be more precise than with a true rifle cartridge. Conventional wisdom is to keep your shots within about 100 yards with a rifle and 50 yards with a revolver. That seems reasonable to me based on the range testing I've done with 44 Magnum. The trajectory and velocity drop off pretty sharply after about 125 yards. How much does 44 Magnum ammo cost? Well, that one's easy. Just head over to our website and look. I could just tell you, but ammo prices are always fluctuating, so that information would be outdated in about 5 minutes. Generally speaking, though, when the ammo market is stable, the cost per round of 44 Magnum is about twice the cost of 38 Special and 4 times the cost of 9mm. It's expensive for a pistol cartridge, but more affordable than most rifle ammo. How does barrel length affect performance of 44 Magnum? Well, let's take a look at the excellent velocity measurements from ballisticsbytheinch.com. Here's their 44 Magnum data plotted on a beautiful line chart. They only did 4 loads for this caliber, but that's enough to see a pretty clear trend. Velocity climbs pretty sharply from 2 to 4 inches, increasing about 30%. From 4 to 5 inches, the jump is smaller, about 7.5%. From there on out, each inch of barrel only adds 1 or 2% velocity. That means you don't have to use a super long barrel to get good performance out of this cartridge. By 15 or 16 inches, all the powder has burned off and the velocity peaks. So a 20-inch lever action may actually lose velocity compared to a 16-inch. Based on my own velocity testing, the 6.5-inch Smith & Wesson gets 2.5 to 10% more velocity than the 4-inch, depending on the load. With a rifle barrel, all of those small increases add up. Our 16-inch Marlin 1894 adds an average of 400 feet per second over the 4-inch revolver. The rifle flings those bullets 25 to 50% faster, depending on the load. So 44 Magnum is great with a 4-inch barrel. It's a little better with a 6-inch, and a 16-inch rifle takes it into the realm of intermediate rifle cartridge performance. What are the best guns chambered in 44 Magnum? The best gun chambered for 44 Magnum is the Callahan from the German company Korth, imported by Nighthawk Customs. It's named after Dirty Harry himself, with a 7.5-inch barrel, a high polished black DLC finish, and Turkish walnut grips, all for just $9,000. Honestly, I don't know if it's actually the best 44, but at that price, it should be, and Korth is known for making exceptional revolvers. But assuming that is not in your budget, there are plenty of other good options. I just can't tell you which one is the best. Smith & Wesson was the original, and they probably have the widest variety of 44 Magnums, including the iconic Model 29. Rugers are the toughest, at least by reputation. They've got a couple of double actions and a ton of single actions. Taurus offers the best value, and Colts are, I don't know, the shiniest. If you're shopping for a 44 Magnum, start with deciding how you want to balance weight and recoil. If it's a range-only gun, try a heavier model or something with a ported barrel. That's going to make shooting it a lot more enjoyable. For hunting or bear defense, it seems like people who do it a lot always end up with a 4-inch gun, even if they started out with something bigger. Anything more than about 40 or 45 ounces gets really annoying to carry after a while. If you're going to do it, I would suggest a chest rig instead of a belt holster. As far as 44 Magnum rifles, there are a lot of great lever actions to choose from, and Ruger makes one bolt action. I am partial to the Marlin 1894. The newer Marlins, since Ruger took over, seem really solid. We just got this 1894 Trapper, and I'm very impressed with it so far. The action is sometimes smoother on Winchester-based models, but the Marlins are easier to accessorize and more flexible for mounting sights and optics. Are there semi-automatic firearms chambered in 44 Magnum? Why, yes there are. This video would not be complete without at least mentioning the Magnum Research Desert Eagle. It's best known for the 50 AE cartridge, but the Desert Eagle is also available in 44 and 357 Magnum. I have fired a 44 Desert Eagle, and it's surprisingly soft shooting, assuming you can get your hands around the grip. The gun is just absolutely massive. When you first pick it up, it almost seems like a practical joke. The one that I shot was not reliable, and that's pretty standard for the Desert Eagle, unfortunately. Ruger has also offered 2 different semi-automatic 44 Magnum rifles in the past. The Model 44 Deerstalker was made from 1961 to 1985. It had a 4-round tubular magazine. The Ruger 1022 is actually based on the Model 44 design. And then from 2000 to 2006, they made the 9944 Deerfield. It was a completely different design. That one fed from a 4-shot detachable rotary magazine, and there were also 10-round aftermarket mags available. Both guns were expensive to make and discontinued because of low sales. I personally think it's time for Ruger to give it a third try. I would love to see a semi-auto 44 Magnum styled after an M1 carbine, maybe with some tasteful modern touches. Okay, that's all I've got on 44 Magnum. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, if you need some ammo, be sure to get it from us with lightning fast shipping at Lucky.
Dirty Harry audition for Manny Mansfield.
Okay, are we ready? Well, I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, I kinda lost track myself in all the excitement. But being as this is a 44 Magnum, a Smith & Wesson Model 29 in fact, but being as this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world.
Don't look at the camera.
This is real, huh? The most powerful handgun in the world. And would blow your head clean off. And would blow your head clean off. Blow your head clean off. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Well, do ya, punk? Well, do ya, punk? How was that? Can I take this home?